Welcome to Life by Design. I'm your host, Robyne, and I am thrilled to welcome you to this space for real conversations about how we live, how we show up day in and day out, because the quality of our life is shaped by our habits. What we do in ordinary time allows us to be extraordinary. We can unpack what it takes to truly live well and be well in real life. Welcome to Life by Design. And I'm just so excited that you're here. On today's episode, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Brad Jensen, who is also known as the Sober Bodybuilder. Now, Brad and I have a big conversation, and I'll let you know there is some content that might be triggering from some folks. We do talk about addiction, so I'll give you the heads up. And we also talk about our way through, how we're able to build big, beautiful lives in other seasons and how we can think about our comebacks. So Brad shares very candidly about his journey from addict to someone who has built a remarkable business supporting other people meet their physical health goals, their emotional health goals. And I'm really excited for you to join us for this conversation about really some big topics presented in a way that I think is very useful. So I hope you enjoy this episode with our Sober Bodybuilder on Instagram. Here is my episode with Brad and I about all things like that. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am very excited to be able to welcome Brad Jensen to the podcast today. So, Brad, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Okay, so I got to tell you, you are the one fitness, health, well-being influencer that makes me laugh and learn guaranteed. Like every segment that I have had a chance to come across on my feed, I am learning and I am laughing and I am so inspired by the work that you're doing. So for folks who haven't perhaps had a chance yet to hear about your work, can you give us just a snapshot of what you're up to these days and how you do the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very kind. That's my whole goal is to provide some infotainment. Hopefully provide some laughter and the good part is like I don't try to be funny, it just is, which is great because when people try to be funny that aren't funny and like maybe I'm not funny. A lot of people have told me I'm not. So I appreciate
Well,
that.
you are so funny. You are so funny, let me tell you. I'm sorry for I totally just interrupted you, but I have to tell you, your segment on eggs, I was, like, crying, laughing out loud. I sent it to everybody I've ever met in my life pretty much because it literally was one of the funniest things. So, I'm sorry I interrupted. Please continue to tell us about you and your
No,
awesome work.
you know what? You're great. No, interrupt as much as you want. I have a podcast too, and I always I tend to do that to guests because I did not go to school to be like a journalist, right? Like, I don't know how to
Yeah,
interview people, but what I do know how to do is have a conversation. And so, like,
exactly.
this is great. I love it. Yeah. So I've been doing this. I technically got certified in 2003 as a personal trainer right out of high school. I don't tell people I've been in the industry that long because it's a little misleading because I took about a decade, which we can jump into or not jump into, to become a professional
Yep.
drug addict. I mean, I'm being kind of serious, but wasn't my smartest move. But so I spent 10 years in active addiction. And when I got sober in 2012, I got back into to doing what I want to do, which is fitness nutrition coaching. And so I tell people like probably more honest answers. I've been doing this for the last
Yeah.
13 years. And it's kind of all I've ever known. And I own a company called Next Level Coaching, and we do
Mhm.
high level fitness nutrition coaching and some personal development coaching. And I've owned that company since 2017, and I started producing content
Wow.
in the end of 2019. My business was doing pretty good, but I had zero personal brand. Like I don't know, I had a couple hundred
Yeah.
followers or maybe 500, can't remember. And so I was like, I want to like kind of attempt this. And I said, for the next year, no matter what, without fail, I'm going to post every single day. And if at the end of the year, I'm like, okay, apparently I don't have a great message, then I'll just go back to running the business and not worry about social media stuff. But
Yeah.
fortunately, it took off pretty well. And so
Yeah.
I, have been able to, it was never my goal to be like a quote unquote influencer. And even the term sometimes I'm like, oh, because
Yeah.
there's so many people that just like are, a little bit sleazy in that kind of category, in
Yeah.
my opinion. And there's a lot of good people too.
Agreed. Yeah.
But it's been really cool. And so, that's me in a nutshell. I mean, that's like the most
Mhm.
brief overview ever, but
Yeah, I appreciate that so very much, and also as somebody who studies, like, human resiliency and performance, that 10-year decade obviously is just the fact that you're sharing that, is just so remarkable, and again, you're such an amazing example of hope and what it looks like on the other side of that, and it's somebody who also has been in many decades into my own sobriety. I know how big of a deal it is, and I know everyone's story and his experience is
oh,
different,
right
and
on.
I also very much appreciate that there is so many different ways through storms. Like whatever that storm is going to be, whether it's addiction, whether it's an illness, whether it's a loss of a job, loss of relationship, there are so many different trailheads, so to speak, Brad, that I see in my work and how people get through. And one of the things that I really hold space and celebrate for you is that I'm making the assumption that one of those roots for you was around physical fitness and well-being and nutrition and emotional recoveries, physical recoveries. And I'm just so encouraged to see other examples of how people find a way into a new season in their life. And you've clearly done that in such a meaningful way that's inspiring millions. So thank you.
So what is your work on, tell? And thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Now I'm
You're
curious about you.
welcome.
See,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like trying to
Yeah.
interview you now.
I love that. We can totally do it back and forth. Yeah, I study human resiliency and how
Amazing.
again, how people build comebacks, how people build their lives
Uh,
after they've experienced difficult things. And again, one of the reasons why I'm absolutely so convinced that, people sent me your material and like, "Oh, Robin, you would love this," is because one of the pillars that we talk about in my work, Brad, is that humor is a way that some of us are able, if you think of all the different ingredients that go into building a resilient person, right? We talk about belonging and connection and perspective, but humor plays a huge role in it, which is why I love the work that you're doing and how you bring knowledge and humor in like a really empowering way. It's not self-deprecating, it's not at the expense of other people. Like you're pulling out these gems that are having great conversations, and for that I think it's very very cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's really cool. Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I've really tried to make it a point, even when and I don't always do perfect, but I really, really try that when I'm calling out something that I think is misleading or could be harmful for people, or there's like a different perspective for people to see on
Yes.
maybe a reel that went viral. Cause I'm like, ooh, I just don't totally agree with that. I really try to attack the message, not the
Yeah.
messenger. And I've
Yeah.
really tried, and I have some buddies in the industry who have bigger followers than me, and it is even a little more viral potential to really you start attacking the person. And
Yeah.
I've really tried to steer away from that because at the end of the day, uh, I don't feel good about that, and so I always just try to so I kinda heard you pick up on that, so that I love
Yeah.
that, and I love that you've studied
Yeah.
human resilience because it fascinates me too.
Yeah.
When I got sober, it's like my case was I didn't get a life back. I didn't
Mhm.
have a life. Like, I started using
Yeah.
drugs at 18 years old, and I started using drugs at, like, 13 years old, but I'm talking I
Right.
started using heroin at 18 years old. And so I mean, I was from the get, shooting up heroin, really bad addict. And so from 18 to 28 is when a lot of people are building like kind of some
Mhm.
foundations of their life, um,
Yeah.
so to speak. Not everyone, but and I just never did. I would try to get sober, Robin. It wasn't like I didn't
Mhm.
try. I tried.
Yeah.
I seriously tried. I tried to think about it the other day when someone asked me. Probably seriously tried 25 or 30 times. Um,
Wow.
to get sober. Like, I would be like, "Hey, I'm doing it," and I could make it some days I could make it a day.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I could, go to rehab or do something, and I could make it 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. One
Mhm.
time in that 10 years, I made it to 8 months, and
Wow.
in that 8 months, I did start to kinda get things back, but not I mean, I was, it wasn't like I had this terrific life that I had lost. I
Yes.
never really had a life to begin with. So when I got sober, I
Yeah.
tell, like, people sobriety and recovery didn't just give me, It didn't give me my life back. It gave me a totally new life, and it was almost this
Yeah.
rediscovery at the ripe age, like 28. I
Yeah.
felt like I was 18. I
Mhm.
emotionally, mentally, spiritually bankrupt, physically in the worst shape. What was interesting is during my addiction, there was periods where I could still like, early on, where I would literally you would look at me and never think I was a heroin addict. I had muscle, I
Mm.
went to the gym, and then I'm, like, casually just shooting heroin at, breakfast, lunch, and
Yeah.
dinner type of thing, like, it was and obviously, then it took over, but by the time I got sober, I had completely fallen out of the gym. I was,
Mhm.
about 40 or 50 pounds underweight, really skinny, and so I had to redefine this and redefine a life, and I started looking around at my friends I went to high school with that, they were married with some kids and
Yeah.
had a career path and they had a home. And I'm living on some guy's, in some guy's basement that I met in recovery meetings on a mattress, renting a room that I didn't even have a bed. I had a mattress on the floor and I was so grateful for that. And
Yeah.
so I there were so many times I looked around and the story I kept telling myself was you're too late to the game. Like you're starting
Mm.
too late. And I ran with that story for the first few years of my sobriety and it was very
Yeah.
detrimental to me. And now I know that everything happened divinely exactly how it was supposed to.
Mhm.
I actually am very grateful for everything I went through.
Yeah. Brad, that's just there's so many different threads I would love to learn more about, and I just wanna really hold space that, again, when we imagine and we're co-creating these futures, where we're building these futures, for many of us, we it isn't that we're going back to it. It's not like we had it and lost it, and now we're gonna get it back
Mm.
again. It's this idea that, like, you're this architect of a whole new life, and it would be so easy to get pulled into that narrative that I'm too late or I've missed my chance or, I'm always going to be behind. Yet what I hear you saying is that, the timing in its grand way, it worked out. Here you are. And again, how you were able to find a through line, even though during that season you were still still dedicated to your art of lifting, to fitness, to well-being. And it's amazing how at times some of these things can actually coexist. Like both could be true. You could be working out, taking care of yourself, and you could be miserable, and or you can be in this dream job and also wildly successful, but also emotionally completely miserable as well. And what I just appreciate is that once you kind of did the work, which is a lot of work, to get to the other side of it, like all of this new opportunity for creating a life opened up for you. And clearly fitness was just such a amazing catalyst for where we could put that energy and that focus, and the career you've built since.
I love it. Yeah, I've always said I used to think, I mean, if I could have a six pack and be shredded, which I did at times, and be a millionaire, that I would be the happiest person on earth. And then I
Yeah.
actually got into real life and I saw just how many miserable millionaires I know, which millionaires not even
Yes.
cool of a term
Yeah.
anymore. It's crazy, but and how
Yeah.
many miserable people there are with six packs. Now that does not mean
Yeah.
because of those two things, but those things do not build happiness. And I've chased just money at different times in my sobriety, and
Yeah.
I bodybuilded early on, and I chased nothing but the physical aspect. And
Yeah.
um, I realized that happiness, true peace and fulfillment is such a high vibrating emotion that doesn't come from an external thing. And and
Yeah.
uh, and that was a real wake up call for me. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and isn't it almost like it feels unfair that we have to, like, get the thing and then realize the thing isn't the thing? And, like, people have been saying this for, like, decades and eons, being like, "Money's not gonna make you happy," and we always think, "Yeah, people who have money say that." But then actually you realize that with, as they say, like, with more money, more problems, like, it's a whole new there's gonna be challenges and stressors everywhere, and that, again, if we put that at that external focus, that outward focus to be like, "Oh, that's gonna make me happy," it's just like, my gosh, we're giving up so much of our control, right? Like we're just giving up so much of our control to outsources, when the reality is when we get our kind of our emotions in a check and our physical health in check, it really unlocks us to have a completely different experience. And we figure out really quickly how to make what matters most matter most. And
Yeah.
again, I just really celebrate the example that you're showing us. And again, just that it's so much more than just physical activity, right? It's so much more than just bodybuilding. It's so much more than just being able to do what you do. It's again creating this dialogue that's letting other people know as well that there's, there's hope, right? There's recovery is possible. And one of the questions I would love to ask you, and this wasn't on my massive list of questions to ask Brad today, but a question that's coming to me top of mind as so I was a teenager and an early adult with significant addictions. You are somebody who shared exactly what you shared. When I speak to parents and I speak to family and they're trying their best to support the person in their life that they care about who is self-sabotaging or who is in that 25th attempt of trying to get clean or sober, is there any words of encouragement that you would offer families and loved ones when they're really worried about their person who's going through those hard seasons? Because it impacts the whole family. It impacts everybody. But I so many parents and supporters that I work with ask like, Robyne, what do I do for that person who again might be on their 20th trying to go to rehab?
It's so challenging because I think there's so much nuance within that. And I think it depends on where the person's at. And I get asked that a lot. And, my story was that my mother almost loved me to death, literally, like almost loved me into the grave. I've always said, like, behind every great addict at some point in that addict career was a great enabler, usually. And not always,
100%.
but for me, it was.
Yeah.
And I didn't get sober until my parents cut me off. And when I tell people that, you gotta remember, again, this is now I didn't even know this at the time until I got sober and I sat my dad down and made some amends, and I didn't realize that the last rehab they'd sent me to, which was the 7th at that point, they had to refinance their home and take out a second mortgage, and I don't know why I just thought the stuff was all free somehow, like, I'm like, "Well, I don't know, they're paying for it."
Yeah.
And so it got to the point where what my father told me is he realized that he got into therapy himself and realized about kind of this codependency and how addiction works. And
Yeah.
he said, you know, the I said, "What was it for you that finally made you say, okay, we got to step back to like allow you to hit bottom?" And he said, I felt like you would be falling down, and because we loved you, we would put this pillow right at the bottom of the right where you would
Mhm.
hit. And so you would hit, but it would soften the blow. And he
Yeah.
said, and at first, I don't regret that. He said, I am regretful that it didn't work, but I don't
Fair.
regret doing that. And he said the turning point for him was when he realized that my parents cared way more about me getting sober than I did. And so at that point, they always reminded me, and this is what I appreciated, that they loved me. They they said, "We love you," but they were about to get a divorce over me because my mom wanted to keep enabling, my dad was done,
Yeah.
and, they've been married now 54 years, and they almost got a
Wow.
divorce over me, and
Yeah.
and because of how bad my mom would enable and my dad was done, my mom finally hit that point of being done, but they let me know. My mom would she would text me throughout that last year where they cut me off, and that's when I finally got sober. They would say, my mom would remind me that I love you and I believe in you. It's gonna get me
Yeah.
emotional.
It
But
is
she,
emotional.
you know, and she
Yeah.
just she just said, I can't give you money. I can't meet up with you. You
Yeah.
can't come over. She said, but I love you and I believe in you. And that meant so much to me, even though it would kind
Yeah.
of give me a buzzkill as I'm like,
Yeah.
doing drugs. And I'm like, Mom, don't text me that right now. But
Yeah.
deep down inside, it meant so much that she still just so for me, in my personal circle, it took my parents finally getting to the point of saying, like, financially, physically, we have to be
Yeah.
done. I would,
Yeah.
this wasn't like they said that. My dad said, "You're not allowed around the house, and if you come, I'll call the cops." This wasn't because I was just a drug addict. It's because I had stolen his
Yeah.
checks. I had stolen Christmas presents over the
Yeah.
years, everything, right?
Yeah.
All in the name of getting the next high.
Yeah.
And but they never they kept reminding me that they love me and they believe in me, and once I'm sober, to give them a call. And once I
Wow.
finally did get sober, it took me probably 6 months to be able to, like, come around a little more. I'd
Yeah.
stop through occasionally, but they were really kind of just, like, keeping their distance, and I'm really grateful too that they didn't give me anything when I got sober.
Mhm.
Talk about that resilience, right? Like, I
Yeah.
had to build from the ground up. I had a 405 credit score. I couldn't even open a bank account. I owed everybody
Wow.
money. I'm taking the bus in the middle of winter in Utah to go to
Yeah.
my job to wait tables because that's the only place that would hire me. And I slipped on the ice. I remember one time and fell on my back and it's snowing on me. And I just like started crying. I think I was like 90 days sober. And I'm like,
Oh,
this sucks. Like, what am I
yeah.
doing? My family still like, they would talk to me more, but they still had a lot of boundaries and
Yeah.
understandably so. But it was kind of
Yeah.
one of the turning points. I got on that bus and I was crying and I'm like, this sucks even worse than getting high. And it was just this
Yeah.
moment of, okay, you have a choice. Like you can go back and use, but we know what that will bring. And if
Yeah.
you don't die, you'll end up in prison. You're miserable. I'd gone to jail so many times. Or you can just sit in this. And it was one of the first times I just learned to sit. And I turned to God,
Yeah.
and just said, "Dude, help me through this." Like, and
Yeah.
the first time that I just sat in such pain without having to change it, and it was
Yeah.
such a turning point in my sobriety.
Yeah. Right, just a huge holding space and recognition to your parents for loving you so hard through that, and,
Mm,
I everything good in my life is possible because of my parents loving me as well, but loving me look different in different seasons for different reasons,
yeah,
and, so, yeah, just a huge shout out to moms,
yeah,
who, they make it all possible, right, and again, I just appreciate so much that, in that moment of learning to be okay in the discomfort of being able to surrender, to be able to say like, God, like I've tried on my own and it hasn't fared very well. Like just help me in this moment. And again, the reality is we only ever can show up moment by moment. And one of the things that we learn when we're kind of learning new strategies and new tools and new habits, especially when we have such this, it's almost like the way our brains are operated is that it's like, oh, there's discomfort, there's pain. I have a way to exit it. Oh, look, it's joy, it's exciting. I have a way to amplify it. It's like our go to is always in that place of that, from that point of an addiction. And again, all the learning that goes into finding new ways of showing up in discomfort and new ways of being able to see the world. And also, you made such a brilliant point about that value of relationship repair that we have amends to make. And again, it's not just all of a sudden everything's great. It's like, no, we have work to do in so many different ways to show up, to be able to, build that trust again and that currency of trust in a relationship to say, like, yes, this is what this is going to look like going forward. So many gems.
yeah.
Now, Brad, could you help me understand so now you're on the other side of it. And again, I appreciate all that goes into that. And how did physicality and how did all of your training, how did that create where you are today? Because I'm so curious about how do we go from you on the bus to here you are looking that you could probably lift a bus? So like how does that work?
Yeah, when I first got, sober again, there was through my using career, it was really characterized by, like, 6 months of a binge and then couple, 3 months of sobriety,
Yeah,
whether that's my parents put me in rehab or I went to jail
yeah,
or I went to detox or, like, and I would still kind of maintain this physical again, till the very end, till my parents cut me
got it.
off. I was homeless that last year. I lost all physicality, right? I was unrecognizable. And so when I got sober, I knew that was important. And, I got sober and like recover like 12-step rooms originally.
Yeah,
And I remember I was like, hey, cool, but there's like one missing part here is none of you guys are talking about your physical health. And I get it. That's not what the
yes,
program was designed for. But I've just had such a strong push to any guys who have asked me to help mentor them or do anything over
yeah,
the years that we've gotta start taking care of your physical body. I believe this is all and that's kinda, where my company kinda message stemmed from was I thought about it this like as like a four-legged chair of fitness, right?
mhm,
And people would
yeah,
come to us for the physical, but if we don't have some in the emotional, mental, and
mhm,
spiritual, they're just balancing on this unwobbly chair all the time. And
yeah,
in my sobriety, it's been absolutely crucial. I just think I don't know if I could stay sober if I was 100 pounds overweight and super unhealthy and felt like garbage every day because I'm a guy who loves to
yeah,
feel good. That's why I did drugs.
yeah,
I like to feel good.
yes,
And so it started with just baby steps. In
mhm,
fact, when I first got sober, I found food again. I was like, "Oh, food's delicious." I just wasn't
Yeah.
really eating much when I was homeless,
Yeah.
and I actually gained like 40 pounds in 60 days. And so 20 of that was good. The other
Yeah.
20, I actually got a little chunky. I was like, "Oh, okay." And that's also when I went and got my hormones checked because I was something
Mhm.
doesn't feel right. I was probably 6 months sober, and because I'd used a bunch of steroids in my 20s, my testosterone was like that of an 80-year-old man. And so that did help me, but I slowly started to work my way back, and I said to myself, I had a goal to compete in a bodybuilding show. It's something I always said I was gonna do on the bar stool in the
Mhm.
bar, the hotel. Like, I was like, "I'm gonna compete one day." And
Yeah.
so I said, "I need to get at least 18 months sober." So I am mentally, emotionally, physically sound to go into this. And so at 18 months sober, I did start a bodybuilding show prep and competed a few months later and
Amazing.
did really well, and, did one other show after that. And then I kinda called it quits because I realized when I that area of focus to me was a little, and this is just my experience. People on my
Yeah.
podcast are like, I know you hate competitors." I'm like, "I'm not at all." I hated competing for me because I got almost addicted to that. And I
For
noticed,
sure.
like it was all I thought about, all I did, and that selfishness and
Yeah.
self-centered came out, which it kind of has to in a certain
Yeah.
degree to do those, but I took it to an unhealthy degree.
Mhm.
And so after that, I kind of reevaluate. I'm like, what does it mean to me to be physically fit? And I still like to be a guy with some size, but now that I'm a father too, I have a 5.5-year-old. And when that
Mhm.
happened, it kind of became more about also being in really good optimal health. So like lab
Yeah.
markers and um because I want to be around for a long time. So while I'm still a big guy, if you look back 5 years ago, I was even bigger, but I
Mhm.
just realized for me, it's I have to find this balance of muscle, but also, um, making sure I'm really internally healthy. For
Yes.
me, it has been an absolute I go on walks, not even for my physical health at this point. I go on them for my
Yeah.
mental health, like my mental and
Totally.
emotional health, and sometimes how I connect with God.
Yeah.
And it also happens to have this really cool effect on your physical health.
Mhm.
I I think it should be a foundation, and in fact, like I said, guys that asked me to help them, I said, "Hey,
Yeah.
you don't have to be like some big jack dude, but if you want me to help you, I'm not gonna like be your coach because that's what I get paid to do. But I'm gonna tell you,
Yeah.
you need to start going to the gym 3 days a week. We need to start walking more. Let's start
Yeah.
eating better food. I want you to eat some whole food. Like this is key for you to also not just getting sober is not just going to become for your physical health, but I believe that helping stay sober is going to be there's going to be a huge component of physical health as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I so appreciate that. Like in different seasons, there's different like reasons for it, and I could share with you. I recently was chatting with a friend of mine. She's an Olympian, and she just said, I'm so glad I found my sport because if I didn't find my sport, it would have been a different addiction. Right. Like just because of like, again, the amount of, as you said, that being self-centered, that focus, that again, for her to be able to be an Olympian and get on the podium, she literally showed, so it's like the pro social side of an addiction and an obsession, right? So I totally appreciate that, what you are saying. And I also appreciate, like, again, that notion of, are we doing it for the right reasons? And I can share with you candidly, like, I'm a mother. I have a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 17-year-old, Hunter, Ava, and Jax. And I remember I had a very fractured relationship with cardio. Okay. I had a wildly fractured relationship with cardio. And I can tell you when Hunter was little, so he's my oldest, but when he was little, so Brad, we did like a family fun race, right? And we were doing this race and Hunter got lost. And in that moment when I realized our son was lost, I just like there was a turning point in the trail where would have gone one way, but the race would have gone the other way. And I had a stroller. So I had left the baby with my parents who were doing this with me. And I just started running in the woods, like on that trail where he likely would have gotten lost. And I remember I ran 10 kilometers until I found him. And the
Wow.
entire time, again, it was adrenaline, it was endorphins. But I remember in that moment radically changing my perspective as to why I do cardio. I don't do cardio to stay small. I don't do cardio to fit into something. I do it
Mm,
because when life happens, I was able to find my kid, and I was able to physically get myself to where my son was, and I will never forget when I saw him, like, so there he is, and I remember he was wearing his he was a keeper in goal, like a goalie keeper in soccer, so he had this bright yellow long sleeve keeper jersey on, and I saw him in the woods, and I scooped him up, and I'm like, "Hunter," he's like, "I knew you'd find me. Like, I knew you'd find me, mom." And I was like, of course I would find you. I'll always find you." And again, it was just now when, people are like, "Oh, I got to get my steps in," or, "Oh, I have to do this," or, "I should be doing this." That moment
Mm.
radically changed my perspective of physical well-being and physical fitness because I always want to be a mother who's able to look after my family, whatever that looks like.
Oh, that was a cool story. Gave me chills. That was awesome.
Oh,
Yes, those are
there
like what I talk with clients about is creating these deeper leverage points. And when I said that for years, I've always got my steps in, but I was meticulously tracking it because of one thing. And it was I gotta stay lean. I gotta stay in good shape. Like this is what it's
yeah,
for. And over the last 3 years, it wasn't even intentional, but I've really dove into a little more meditation and doing some different work. And I
yeah,
started to realize, no, like, I don't even really look at them. I just end up getting them, every most days,
yes,
and if
yeah,
I don't freak out either. Now that's a different thing
mhm, yeah,
because I know that I need it for my mental, emotional, spiritual health. Like, it's the leverage point is so different, and
yeah,
even with the cardio, I am doing cardio lately, and I was the king of, like, "You don't need cardio," and
yeah,
just to get lean, for the record, you don't. I would do
yeah,
weightlifting and steps, and, like, that's what
yeah,
most bodybuilders do. But I started to realize I'm in horrible shape, and if something like that happened, like, this is all about my heart health and
yeah,
overall endurance. If I had to chase and run after him, like, if 3 or 4 years ago, I wouldn't have made it. They would have looked
mhm,
at me and said, "That guy's in great shape." Till they saw me running like like a deformed orangutan, they would have been like, "That guy cannot run." And
yeah,
that story, those are the reasons. So I do cardio today, and it has nothing to do with my body fat. It has
yeah,
everything to do with my heart health and my capacity to have play with my kid more. I'm jumping around at the
exactly,
trampoline park, and and I watch some of these parents sitting on the sideline, and this isn't from a place of judgment, but
mhm,
it's a place of I see that some of them probably couldn't even go do that with their kids. And I'm
yeah,
like, he's only gonna be this age once, and I wanna live it
mhm,
up with him. And so that's why I try to stay in better cardiovascular shape. So similar to you, I love that story. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah. Oh, well, thanks for taking it in. And again, there are so many different reasons and kind of why people pursue health and well-being, but you're absolutely right. And in the research program that we talk about in my work, stressing wisely, we talk about this fact that this is physical, this is spiritual, this is emotional, it's also occupational, right? It's like who we hang out with, how we make livelihoods, how we build lifestyles. All of this works to this greater good of being able to be well, because when we feel better, we do better, right? When we feel better, we're able to show up for our kids as you're describing, right? You're able to show up for your community, show up for your partner, you show up for the people that matter most to you. So I'm so mindful of your time, but I have a couple quick questions that I wanted to ask if you're open to it.
Yeah.
One of the questions, so what would you say is your like morning MVP, that like this is one of your favorite things to do in the morning and you make sure you dial that in, whether it be for your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, for your family? What's your morning MVP, that non-negotiable for you?
I and just I have been really bullish on a morning routine ever since I got sober,
Yeah.
and it's been a staple, and so and it's ebbed and flowed. Um,
Mhm.
right now, just giving it. I mean, I am maybe to a fault at times, according to my fiance. I'm a little bit robotic. Like it's like
Yes.
without fail. I get up, I drink 16 ounces of water with a little electrolytes and lemon, but like that doesn't even matter. And then I set up my supplements. Like I am on point right now for
Yeah.
me. Taking about 10 to 15 minutes to connect spiritually for me is kind
Yeah.
of a non-negotiable because
Mhm.
I feel like we're all just these spiritual beings having very human experiences. And when I don't connect to
Yeah.
that spiritual side of me, I live in my human mind, which is my ego, and I make
Yep.
decisions based off of um, not my best self at times. And so
Mhm.
for me, it's been crucial. And I do that in different ways, but I do a short little meditation every morning and I do a little reading. And then
Mhm.
lately I've been doing some writing. And then after that, I do some push ups. And it's not because I'm trying to get my chest buff. I mean, I wouldn't mind, but
Hey.
it's start to get some blood flow, get something
Yeah.
physical. And so for me, it looks different, but connecting spiritually for me, and
Yeah.
people do that in the mirror. I pray, I meditate, and then I write, and that's kind of been been give or take. It ebbs and flows of what I put in there or take out, but that's been
Yes.
something I regularly do for the last couple years.
I love that, and I can this is amazing 'cause, recently we interviewed, Mark Divine, the commander, Mark Divine, the retired Navy SEAL, and what's so amazing, here is another warrior who starts his day with meditation, prayer, reflection. Like,
Mm,
I just think
yeah,
and I love that we're, like, interrupting that wee bit of a stereotype where it's like, we
yeah.
wake up and boom, we're hitting this, and we're hitting that stack, and we're doing this, and it's like, literally in the span of a very short period of time, I have had the privilege of interviewing 2 warriors, and both of them are starting in a tender way of compassion and care and love, and I just
Mm,
think that is so admirable, and I wish more people would hear that, that this is actually as important, if not obviously more important than all the physical things that we do to get our heart lined in place to be able to do what we want to do and be able to be of service. So I think that's so
love that.
cool.
And with the kind of pattern interrupt of, you know, a military guy, like that's the way he's starting his day, right? And
Yeah.
I do, I think hopefully I'm breaking some stereotypes of guys that look like me,
Yes.
like big jack guys with that sounded
Yeah.
conceited, but, like decently
Yeah.
jacked guys, how about that,
Oh
with
no, dude, you're
tattoos
good.
and, um,
Brad, you're good. You
and,
don't. You're good.
yeah. Trying to break some stereotype of that because one of the best compliments I get, and I never take it offensively, is when people are like, "Oh, you're so much different than I thought you would be." And that's not
Yeah,
like people who follow me on social, just in real life. And I'm like, "Thank you." And like, "Oh, I don't mean that rude." I'm like, "No, I get it." Like, there's
I
kind
get
of,
it.
a stereotype that maybe I'm just a
Yeah.
meathead, and really, like,
Yeah.
I love being able to, hopefully inspire some other men to start that way, and especially dads, that,
Yes.
it's just, man, I show up so much better as a father when I make sure I'm filling my own cup up a little in the morning, and
Yeah.
getting into my heart instead of my head all the
Yeah.
time.
Oh, I totally echo that. I love that. And just so you know, I happen to be a mother. My 20-year-old has a gorgeous sleeve. And I actually remember being somewhere and I was so excited when I got this FaceTime from my kid. And the person like standing next to me, they're like, wow, did something really amazing just happen to your kid? And I'm like, no, he's sitting in an 8-hour appointment right now and it looks so good. And anyway, so just so you know, I have
That's so
respect,
cool.
for the art. Oh, yeah, 100%. Or another time I remember I was doing we were doing like a mastermind, so it was like a really long day, kind of grueling business kind of meeting, and I had this alarm that kept going off, and finally someone said like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Hunter has like a 6-hour appointment, and I'm sending him strategic memes every 30 minutes." As encouragement as he is sitting in the chair for 6 hours with his tattoo. And they're like, oh my gosh, and you're excited about this? I'm like, yes. Like, he is like I am excited because it's his story and I love how he uses that for his own sport, his own activity. So yeah, I totally get that, interrupting some
I
of the
love that.
common believed.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Or and I can remember too one time I was presenting and I had talked about, my dark season of adolescence and early adulthood. And somebody's like, oh, did all your tattoos, like, is that just like left over? And I'm like, oh, no, no, I got those all like as a mother, right? I think I was 40 when I got all my tattoos. But thank you for thinking that they're like, sketchy tattoos from back in the day. And, but no, no, these are all brand new actually. But thank you. Awesome. Okay.
That's
Question
awesome.
for you. As somebody who like, corrects information. And I'll tell you, there was an interesting study that was done. It was Dublin City University, and they looked at 67,000 reels, Brad, on social media around health and well-being, and they determined that only 2% were scientifically valid. Okay, so 67,000 reels were evaluated, and the researchers concluded only 2% are scientifically valid about all that misinformation that's out there, which is shocking to me, but not shocking. But the question I have right now, what would you say is kind of like a wellness trend that like you are like, it's so overrated, right? Maybe it's inaccurate or it's just so overrated when it comes to a health or a fitness trend that you see that's really popular right now.
That's an interesting stat. I'm gonna steal that because
I'll send it to you. You can
that
have it. I
that
will make
does
sure
not.
you have it.
Because listen, here's the thing, people, if they just talk convincing enough, and
Oh, yeah.
People just believe them, and especially if they happen to, even if their license isn't active, but they have words like doctor before their name,
Yeah,
that gives them
totally.
credibility, and
Yeah,
some of them are talking about nutrition in ways that is just scientifically inaccurate,
yeah,
and but people believe it because they speak convincing, like, "Well, they're a doctor," and I'm like, "Yeah, they don't even have an
yeah,
active medical license anymore," and, like, that's not
exactly.
what they were trained on.
Yeah.
Um, oh gosh, man, there's so many I was thinking as you were saying that. I I think, well, a couple things. One, I guess just more tactical is, and it's kind of dying down, and it's not that I don't think it has any place, because I do, but kind of
Yeah,
the carnivore trend, it's dying down a little
yeah,
now. Only because most people, I have taken clients through a carnivore phase that medically needed it. We looked at their
yeah.
labs, they were a complete wreck, maybe autoimmune issues. So I by no and that's what's hard is there's the real answer with everything in nutrition is it depends. Like there's so much
It depends.
nuance to
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
But overall, when I saw just average Joe at the accounting office doing it, I'm like, bro, you don't need to go that extreme because you're not going to sustain this. So even if you get a dramatic weight loss, there were some problems too with running into not having fiber and some other
Yeah,
issues, and it's just not sustainable. And so then they're probably going to gain all the weight back, and then they feel like even more of a failure because I know that
yeah,
feeling because I did it 25 times. I
yeah,
got this time, and then I'm like, nope, I blew it again, and that is such a
yeah.
demoralizing feeling. So
Yes.
that from that, and then the second thing is not so much a thing, but I don't know if you've seen the trend. It's called skinny talk and like TikTok, like talk.
Yeah.
It is
Yes.
all about being skinny, and that really
Yeah.
frightens me. And I've actually filmed a couple reels,
Terrifying.
kind of fighting back against it
Yeah.
because for so many years that was the case, right? And was skinny, skinny. Nothing tastes as good as thin fills, and like my mom
Yeah.
had that on her fridge, right? And
Yeah.
and then it kind of went to this I feel like we hit this trend a couple of years ago. It was really awesome. We're like strong is the new skinny and like, we don't
Exactly.
have to be
Yeah.
skinny. You just want to be lean and strong and like and that's so empowering for women. And I was like, yes,
Yeah.
we made it out of the like be the skinniest possible. And now
Yeah.
lately it's really came back with a vengeance.
Yes.
And it's a lot of younger girls who have influence, they have following, kind of saying, "If you get skinny, your life will get better." And I'm like, "That's
Yeah.
not true." And at what cost? How are we getting skinny? And I don't
Yeah.
love that word, especially if I had a young daughter, I would just be like, "Cover your ears because that's not
Yeah.
what this is about. I want you to be healthy and strong." And if that also
Mhm.
happens to be that you walk around lean, great, but we're
Yeah.
not gonna use the word skinny. I don't have a daughter, I have a son.
Yeah.
But that scares me a little because that's,
Yeah.
a lot of disordered eating waiting to happen. And with the rise of GLP medications, the weight loss medications, which candidly, like
Yeah.
in the right setting, I think are a net positive. I
Yeah.
get a lot of crap from other coaches. I think I have plenty of clients on them. For the right client, it's a godsend. But for
Yes.
a 24-year-old girl that has 10 pounds to lose, going on it and then losing 20 pounds and looking like she's emaciated, that
Mhm.
scares me. I just filmed a reel where the girl said, somebody told me today something, "You're looking too thin." She was like, "Day made," and all the comments were like, "Oh my gosh." When my parents I think it'll come out
Yeah.
either today or tomorrow. Well,
Yeah.
when we're recording this,
Yeah.
all the comments were like, "Oh my gosh, when somebody tells me that I get euphoria." Yes, there's never anything as too skinny. Like, "Oh, tell me more compliments." Yes, girl, like, and
Yeah.
that worries me. And so I am gonna
Yeah.
make kind of a push to fight back that I'm not saying walk around with a ton of body fat, but the word skinny and at what cost is really frightening to
Yeah.
me.
Oh, 100%. And as a mother of a 19-year-old girl, like I see this, I feel this, and it's just, it is such a scary, scary, slippery slope. And again, especially when the world feels so scary and unwell, the amount of control and that sense of accomplishment. And as we know that the world reinforces it, right? The world cheers it on, and people don't know why people are the weight that they are. And there's a lot more to that picture. And it's very concerning to me. And you know what's one of the fascinating things, and you probably have already come across this. If not, I'll totally share it with you. Is when we even look at like the recommended caloric diet intake for women, when we think about that number, and it kind of ranges, in Canada, they're talking about 1,200 to 1,800 calories a day. When we actually see where that came from, after the Second World War, when they were trying to figure out how to slow down the women's movement of women's rights in terms of women holding positions of occupations, like Brad, a group of doctors got together and said, how do we slow down the women's suffragette movement? And the consensus was they cannot protest if they are hungry. Like starving women has always been a political tool. And just that right now, this resurgence is happening is terrifying. And they still teach that today in medical school that, that 1,200 calories a day for women, which is like, that's not enough for a toddler, let alone a woman who's taken on the world. Right. So it just is, there's a lot of misinformation out there that's scary. I echo that. Now, on another trend, if I could ask you out, I would just be, I'm actually looking for the soundbite so that I can show this to all of the young athletes in my son's life who are dry scooping. No, what is it called? Is it dry scooping creatine right before they're about to go on the court for a basketball game? And I'm watching them like huffing creatine, not huffing, that's not the right word, literally dry scooping it, creatine right before they play basketball. And I have this moment where there I am on the other side of the court, Brad, looking at them being like, what are you boys doing? That's not like nothing good is going to happen from young athletes dry scooping creatine before they play. So maybe you disagree or agree with that, but if this could be the moment where you set the record straight on young athletes not needing to dry scoop creatine, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely don't, and before a game is a horrible idea because
Exactly.
creatine in some individuals can give you some gastric, distress. Candidly, uh, um, I get asked I'll get asked by people, in my Instagram, "Hey, my son's 15, he wants to start taking creatine." I said, "Listen, creatine's not a steroid, it's not,
Yes.
but is it necessary for somebody who's 15? Probably not." Like, that's just
Mhm.
the truth.
Yes.
And there hasn't been a ton of long-term data on children using creatine.
Mhm.
The safety factor for adults is definitely there, but for,
Yes.
I just think teenagers, and this is coming from a guy who at all costs wanted to be better in football and then wanted to be the best bodybuilder. I mean, I was taking these, they got banned shortly after, but these steroid like supplements from GNC that really screwed me up as a kid. I
Yeah.
mean, I was like 16 and I'm popping these things because, well, I want to be the best at this. And so, yeah, you definitely don't need to be dry scooping it before a game,
Thank
and any placebo they're getting, it's just placebo. Like, it's not doing
Yeah.
it. That's not how it works. It's a saturation
Yes.
effect over time, and honestly, a young child probably just doesn't even need it, period.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna thank you. Like, and I feel that was very selfish and very I needed that. And I'll share you really quick anecdotally. So the boys and I, Hunter and Jax, we've done this thing since Hunter was actually 8. That's called Mama Boy Weekend, where what we do every year is we pick a state or a game or a place, and we'll go see an NFL game and an NBA game in a particular place for a weekend. And this is one of been my favorite traditions with the boys. Ava, our daughter, she loves live music, so we're not excluding her. We just do live music for her. But for the boys, we always go to a football game. And I kid you not, just last weekend we were in Kansas City watching the Colts play and the Chiefs, and they went into overtime, Brad. And so again, these players, these warriors, just poured it all out on the field for all the 4 quarters. Here they are about to go into overtime, and we saw their nutritionists pull out their coolers. Okay, are you ready for this? They pulled out bananas, like they pulled out Welch like fruit gummies. They pulled out like little granola bars and like goldfish. And I looked at Jackson. I'm like, dude, this is what the NFL players are munching right before they go on to play football for the overtime, like for overtime after the 4th quarter. And I was just so excited because they were like the Welch food snacks, the goldfish. They were like readily available, quick digesting carbs that they could grab and a banana, and I felt so vindicated. And I was just like, look, nobody's using energy drinks. Nobody is using the other stuff. They are literally using like just simple carbohydrates. And there they were, these big, massive, NFL players. The O line was sitting there like eating Welsh fruit snacks, those little kind of little fruit packs, and some Rice Krispie squares and goldfish. And I was pretty excited about that as a mom who is trying to
Honestly,
find
that's what I was
good
gonna follow
snacks.
up with, is what they
Yeah,
should do is work on their nutrition and get some good carbohydrates in them to give them some energy. It's not gonna come from
exactly.
creatine, like, you're missing the
Yeah.
boat. If you wanna be the best
Yes.
athlete, start taking your nutrition more seriously and fuel up with some good carbs, before a
Yeah.
game, and that's the key, right?
100%, 100%. And the mild disclaimer, Jax is not a creatine dry scooper, but let me tell you, there's a bunch of them out there in the sports world right now. So I love when we can put good information into people's hands, and that way
Maybe
we
I
can
need to
make
do a video on that
informed.
now.
Yeah, there you go. Please do, and I will share it with everyone that I know, and then that will be something we can continue the conversation. My friend, the last video I just saw that you put out there was letting us know that we can eat white Wonder Bread, and I just want you to know I appreciate you letting us know, giving us permission, Brad, that we can eat white Wonder Bread, but throw on some cottage cheese, do some of the things. Thank you for making nutrition and fitness so real and
Oh,
practical,
thank you.
and for letting us know that, you know what, it's okay if your vegetables taste good and you use dip, or it's okay if you want to make your grilled cheese with Wonder Bread. Like, please know, I just appreciate you so dearly for the work that you put into the world, not only from, gosh,
Thank
your
you.
journey, your story, which is so admirable. And thank you for being so transparent with us today on this episode, but also just it's just so refreshing to hear people say and know, like you do in your experience, to be like, dude, you can eat Wonder Bread. You're good. You're fine. So please keep it up. Keep shining bright, because you are
Thank you.
impacting so many lives. And I'm very appreciative for our time together today. Thanks for coming on, Brad.
Thank you so much. You did great. I super appreciate you.
Thank you for spending time with me on this episode of Life by Design. I appreciate if you have a moment to pay this forward, share it with someone who you think might benefit from the ideas shared in this episode. If you're feeling so inspired, please also rate and review the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.